A federal judge has approved a class action settlement ordering Facebook to pay $650 million for privacy invasions. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and if you notice this vlog is a little toned down, it's because I've got somebody sleeping in the back.
They were not behaving all that properly on the weekend.
So a federal judge has approved a class action settlement pursuant to which Facebook is going to pay $650 million for violating Illinois' privacy laws. It is an astronomical settlement. It might not really make much of a dent in Facebook's bottom line, and we'll get there in a second. And if you think the settlement is astronomical, wait until you see the amount that the lawyers are getting paid. Not that they don't deserve it, but that is also astronomical. Starting from the beginning, let's just explain the lawsuit itself. A California federal judge issued final approval Friday in a $650 million Facebook class action privacy settlement with an order to get at least $345 to each of the nearly 1.6 million Illinois class members, quote, as expeditiously as possible, end quote. Chicago attorney Jay Ellison, who filed the initial lawsuit against Facebook nearly 6 years ago, said the checks could be in the mail within 2 weeks, barring an appeal over the court's decision. In his ruling Friday, U.S. District Judge James Donato called it one of the largest privacy settlements ever and a, quote, landmark result, end quote, that will get at least $345 into the hands of every class member, pending a final accounting of claims and expenses. So although we're going to get there, and although many of you might be shocked at the legal fees that counsel is going to be entitled to, bear in mind that this class action lawsuit started 6 years ago. And the class action lawsuit itself is based on an Illinois law known as the Illinois Biometrics Information Privacy Act. In a nutshell, back in 2008, Illinois passed a law that required companies gathering biometrics information to obtain the specific consent of the user. And it would appear that Facebook had not obtained that consent before gathering such information on Facebook. In April 2015, Edelson filed a lawsuit against Facebook in Cook County Circuit Court on behalf of plaintiff Carlo Lasata, alleging the social media giant's use of facial tagging features without consent was not allowed under Illinois privacy law. The case was moved to Chicago Federal Court and then California Federal Court, where it attained class action status. We have talked about this in previous vlogs, but a class action lawsuit doesn't really change anything on the substance of the lawsuit. It is a procedural mechanism when you have, say, in this case, so many plaintiffs that it will be impracticable for each of them to file a separate lawsuit. And some of the criteria for determining whether or not something should go by way of class action lawsuit, you need to have a class that can be defined, and you need to have questions of law that are similar for all members of the class. Similar questions of fact and law that apply equally to all class members once that class is defined, and it is not necessarily the case that all class members need to have suffered the same damages, although in this case it seems like it's going to be one same amount given to all class members. In this case, there were something like 6.9 million class members in Illinois, and why did they pick the state of Illinois? Well, it turns out that Illinois has some of the strictest privacy laws out there. The Illinois Biometric Information Privacy Act is among the strictest such laws in the US and requires companies to get permission before using technologies such as facial recognition to identify customers. The settlement class included about 6.9 million Facebook users in Illinois for whom the social network created and stored a face template after June 7, 2011. And before we get into how evil and invasive Facebook is, and yes, I do say this with a touch of hypocrisy because I do have 2 Facebook accounts, one personal, which I barely use, and one that I use to promote my YouTube material, let's just have a look at the essence of this act. From Wikipedia, Biometric Information Privacy Act. The Biometric Information Privacy Act, BIPA, was passed by the Illinois General Assembly on October 3, 2008. Codified as 740 ILCS 14 and Public Act 095-994, the BIPA guards against the unlawful collection and storing of biometric information. When Illinois passed the law in 2008, it became the first U.S. state to regulate the collection of biometric information. Washington and Texas have since passed similar laws. However, the BIPA remains the only law in the U.S. that allows private individuals to file a lawsuit for damages stemming from a violation. The Act prescribes $1,000 per violation and $5,000 per violation if the violation is intentional or reckless. Because of this damages provision, the BIPA has spawned several class action lawsuits. And by way of one notable settlement, on December 1, 2016, the first settlement involving the BIPA was approved by a judge in Cook County, Illinois. The The class action lawsuit was against LA10 Enterprises Inc. and settled for $1.5 million, which included between $125 and $150 for each class member who filed a claim. Well, I guess that Wikipedia entry is going to get updated very soon, and before we get into the quantums, just a very interesting thing about what it means to be a member of a class and file a claim if there has been a class action settlement. Nearly 1.6 million claim forms were filed by the November 23rd deadline, representing about 22% of eligible Illinois Facebook users. Earlier in this vlog, I mentioned that the class included upwards of 6.9 million Illinois Facebook users, but only 1.6 million of those users filed the form, completed the form to be eligible for a payment under the settlement. Some of you out there may have already had this experience that you receive a letter in the mail notifying you of the existence of a class action lawsuit, that you may be eligible to a payment and you should fill out the form to see if you are eligible for a payment. This happened to me once before, but I think the amount was something like $10 to $20, so I really didn't pay much attention to it. In this case, it's upwards of $345 per person. So if you ever get those notices in the mail advising you of the existence and settlement of a class action lawsuit and you may be eligible for a payment, take a look to read
just how much you might be eligible to get.
1.6 million members of the 6.9 million member class filled out the form, are eligible for payments, and they're scheduled to get $345 in the mail within the next couple of months unless something radical happens. But if you thought the $345 was impressive, wait until you see what the lawyers are getting, because that is one heck of a payment. Going where? Have you woken up? Okay, let's go get a donut.
Smells so good in here.
Look at these donuts. Just look at this. Look at that. This is ridiculous. I did not leave the house with shoes or a jacket. Now,
where was I?
Out of the $650 million Facebook agreed to pay, Donata awarded $97.5 million in attorney's fees and about $915,000 in expenses. The court also awarded $5,000 each to the three named plaintiffs in the lawsuit. The rest is to be distributed to all class members equally. Quote, "It's a big deal," Edelson said. "It sends a pretty clear message that in Illinois, biometric privacy rights are here to stay," end quote. Oh, it's a big deal, all right. About a $100 million big deal for the lawyers involved. And I'm not saying this with any judgment. I have no idea how many people working for how long over those 6 years, but $100 million is one heck of a payday. And although the $650 million settlement is astronomical, one has to put that into perspective with Facebook's numbers. Facebook's net income for 2020 was almost $30 billion. According to a Forbes article, in 2020, Facebook was valued at something like $720 billion. The net income of Facebook is the GDP of Estonia. So while a $650 million settlement is astronomical, it's not even clear that it's going to be anything more than a pinprick in the back of this behemoth. That being said, it's one heck of a good start, and now I am wondering how many other states and provinces have similar laws in effect. And one thing is for certain, you know that Facebook is right now redrafting their terms of use. I suspect they are redrafting their terms of use to include a provision to the effect that if you use their services, you consent to them gathering your biometric data. And if they do that, we all now know that that provision of the contract cost them $650 million. Now, with that said, if you like my videos and you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm.
Feed me Seymour.
If you want to support the channel, all of these support links are in the paid comment. We've got PayPal, Patreon, subscribe to our YouTube membership. We have got merch. Keep calm and vlog on. I just dropped my phone, but I'm keeping calm and vlogging on. Robert Barnes and I have a page on Locals. It is called vivabarneslaw.locals.com. We do weekly live streams every Sunday, and we are starting to do weekly live streams every Wednesday with a guest. So if you like more live streams, tune in, and more important than any of that, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, and now you know you vlog. Peace out. Booyah!